Okay, so in this video, we're going to do 3 more examples. So this should help you guys out to factor trinomials that, let's say, don't have a 1 in front, okay? So in the first problem, what do we notice? We notice that there's a 9 in front. The first step for all these problems is you always want to take out the GCF. So right now, I'm thinking, what is the highest number that goes into both 9, 66, and 21? So in this case here, the highest number is a 3, okay? So I'm going to take out a 3. And then I'm going to get x3 x squared plus 22x plus 7. So in this case, if you notice, if I distribute the 3 back in, it would equal the original expression. So let's think about what happens when I distribute the 3 back in. I'd get 9x squared here, 66x here, and then finally 21 at the end. So once we do that, then the first step to factor the rest of it is to draw an x. Okay. And once I draw an x, you always want to rewrite the multiplication of the first and the last number on the top. So in this case here, that would be 21. And then in the middle, we just recopy the middle number, which would be 22. Okay. So now I'm thinking, what are 2 numbers that multiply to 21, but also add up to 22? That would be 21 and 1 in this case. Okay. Now, what's the answer? It's not just x plus 21 times x plus 1. That's not the answer. Because that we have a 3 in the front, then we have to automatically draw the x, or draw the box, okay? So now we draw the box. And you always put the x squared term on the top left, so I'm going to write 3x squared. Okay. And then after that, we want to write the constant on the bottom right, so that's going to be a 7. Okay, and then we want to be thinking, okay, what multiplies out to 3x squared? That would be 3x and x. So I write the 3x on the top, the x on the left. And then after that, we want to be thinking, where do we put these guys here? So we start with the constant here. And I want to be thinking, which number does 3 go in the nicest? Does 3 go in nicer to 21, or does 3 go in nicer to 1? 3 goes in a lot nicer to the 21, so we want to align it up in the same column. So I'm going to put the 21x right there in that spot. So 21x. So there's 21x. Okay. And then where do I put the 1? Remember, the 1 would go in the only other available spot, but it's really 1x, okay? Okay, now at this point, we have to figure out what the answers are. So I'm starting here. Remember, we already know that 3 goes in nicely into the 21x because that's how I set it up. So now I'm thinking 3x times what would give me 21x? And that would be a plus 7, okay? So here I'm going down, and then now I need to go across. So here I'm thinking x times what would give me this x here? And that would be a 1. After that point, now we're done. So the final answer would be whatever you have on the top and then whatever we have on the left. Okay, so the answer in this case would be 3x plus 1 times x plus 7. But remember, that's only the answer for this portion right here. The 3 is still hanging out on the left side, so I still have to put a 3 on the left and not forget it. And then that there would be the final answer, okay? All right, so that was 18. So I'm going to do 19 and 21. So for 19, I'm thinking, okay, what's the biggest number that goes into both 15, negative 27, and negative 6? That would be 3. So the first step is to always take out the GCF. So I'm going to take out the GCF, which is 3. And then now I'm going to get 5x squared minus 9x minus 2. If you notice that when I distribute everything back, I get the original expression, okay? Now what? Well, the 3 is just hanging out on the left. I don't have to do anything about that. But I notice that the expression that I have left starts with the 5. Okay, so we still start with the x method. That's fine. But remember, what goes on the top? What goes on the top is the multiplication of the first and the last number. So in this case here, that's going to be negative 10 And then the number in the middle, really it's the number in front of the x that always goes on the bottom. And then now I'm thinking, okay, I need two numbers that multiply to -10 that add up to -9. That would be in -10 and 1. Okay, now I'm thinking, wait a minute, is the answer just x minus 10 times x plus 1? No, that's not the answer, because remember, the number in front of the square term is not a 1, it's a 5 here. So there's one extra step. That extra step is to draw the box. So I'm going to draw the box. And then in the top left, we always want to write down the square term. So in this case here, it's going to be 5x squared. On the bottom right, we just write down the constant, which is going to be -2. And then we always want to write down what multiplies to the x squared term, which in this case here, we can just write down a 5x and an x. Okay, now we want to figure out what to put in each spot. I know here that the 5 goes in nicely with the -10. Like 5 is easily divisible by -10. So we want to line those up in the same column. But remember, don't forget to attach the x at the end. So I'm going to put a -10x here. We can see that they're both lined up. And then the 1 only has one other spot to go. So I'm going to put 1x in the other spot. And then there's one last step. So now I'm thinking 5x goes into -10x. How many times? That's -2 times. And then, so I went straight down. Now we want to go straight across. X goes into x. How many times? That's 1 time. And then we're almost done. So what's the final answer? The final answer, we still need to write down the 3 that's just hanging out. And then we write down what we have on the top. And then we want to write down what we have on the left. So, and then the final answer would be 3 times 5x plus 1 times x minus 2. Okay, so 3 times 5x plus 1, x minus 2. If you needed to check that, you can always double distribute and make sure that everything worked out correctly. Okay. Now I have one more, then that will conclude this video. If you notice that for 21, everything's out of order. Usually everything is the easiest to factor when the powers go from highest to lowest. So the first step in this case is just to rewrite the problem, because it's just not written down from highest to lowest power. So I'm going to rewrite it as x squared minus 18x plus 81. Now in this case here, I recognize that the number in front of the x squared term is a 1. So I just need to think about, okay, that's the easy one. So I just need to think about, okay, I need two numbers that multiply to 81 that add up to -18. And in this case here, that ends up being -9 and 9. So at that point, we're just done. What's the answer? It's just going to be x minus 9 times x minus 9. That would be almost correct, but the most correct, if you recognize these are both the same thing, we can also rewrite that as just x minus 9 squared, and then that would be the final answer. Okay, I hope this video helped. I'm going to upload it. Thank you for your time.